Hello everyone and welcome to Chess Club. My name is Noel and I'm here with the Water Neos control deck that Cletus and myself played at the Ascent Worlds 3v3 tournament. This is a deck that is heavily inspired and based upon the list that Poro has been playing in the Yeti weekly tournaments for the majority of the ALC season and done very well with. He consistently goes 3-1 or 4-0 with this kind of deck, but it hasn't really caught on in a wider sense, and which I think is unfortunate because this deck fills a very specific niche and style of play that Grand Archive doesn't really have another slot for. This deck basically plays like Draw Go, at least the version that we are running of it, and like Draw Go control. You basically pass with a bunch of cards in hand, and you wait for your opponent to do stuff, you interact, and then if they don't interact with you, you just play cards for value. At level 3, this is taking advantage of your Obelisk of Armaments and Fabrication to make your tokens and just get continual board presence and pressure without going down in resources at all. This deck was very powerful and very fun, and like I said, very different to a bunch of other decks that currently exist in Grand Archive. We took his list and made changes to it just to kind of fit both the 3-3 format and also the feel that we were expecting, plus just changes that we felt kind of put the deck more in line with what we were wanting to do. But let it be kind of known, this deck was originally Poro's. In testing, we called it Water Tony Poro style. Yeah, but let's go ahead and get into the deck. Like I said, it is a Water Neos, so therefore it's Tenoris control deck. So we're running Spirit of Water, and then Tony level 1, 2, and 3. Running Genesis Aegis because of his effect to make the obelisks, which just give you continual value throughout the game. Sort of like Luxem with the reveal effects. You're just getting resources for free, basically. And we found that to be very worth building around. And that's just due to just the very high power of the card. Then we were running Temporal Spectrometer. So the reason behind choosing this deck was that it filled a very specific niche in the 3v3 format where we didn't need to run, or we needed Dungeon Guide for a different deck, but we still wanted to have a second level 3 deck. And so to kind of make that work, we ran Spectrometer and Academy Guides. Getting ways to just discount our level ups level 3, let us maintain influence going into those like turn 4, turn 5, as we are hitting advanced elements, and just being able to actually make high impact plays, which is very, very important. You can't really go to level 3 with only 2 or 3 influence in most decks because you're just not going to be able to actually interact with the game at all. So Spectrometer lets you gonna go +2 or +3 in a sense. Now it is very weak to interaction, and like any Fracturize just shuts it off. It turns into a fractal. Zephyr resets the time counters, and you can't really afford to delay your level ups. Any like Spurn to Ash, Verucan Acolyte, Disintegrate, they'll just destroy the card. However, we thought that wouldn't really be a big problem in 3v3. We didn't think most of the fire decks were going to be running Regalia removal due to the lack of nullifying lanterns in the format, with only one deck getting it. And we figured Fracturize or Zephyr wouldn't really be the worst case. And also we couldn't run GCR Grail anyways because our decks were taking them. So it kind of just worked perfectly to run Spectrometer. And oh boy, am I glad that we did. This card was excellent. Very excited to kind of mess around more with this card. It will probably be a lot less impactful in constructed format where people are able to much more readily play a Regalia interaction. But at least for 3v3 format, it was the perfect choice. We are then running Scepter of Lumina as our other influence-gaining Regalia. This is just basically our GCR. It's a 1-cost Regalia that draws 2 cards. We're never use this for the damage effect. We're only ever grabbing this late just to kind of convert our float into cards, rebuild our influence. But it was incredibly powerful for that effect. And also in the water matchup, you get to play it for free, which is just even better. We're running a Bulwark Sword. Originally didn't really want to play this card, but it just ended up being necessary for the ally matchups. Just being able to be on like turn 2 or like turn 3, grabbing Bulwark Sword, kill an ally, play a removal spell, kill another ally. Just really helps you stabilize early and just really mitigate how much damage you're going to be actually taking. So this card was extremely important and definitely a necessity. We then ran 2 defensive regalia. Terrafring was taken by the Luxem deck in both of our team comps, and so we needed to have other regalia we could grab that would help just protect our life total. And these 2 end up filling that role out quite nicely. They work very similar to each other. Gear Blade's a little bit better because it can hit any units. It can also protect your drones on board, and it has the extra ability counter. But it is a 1 cost to kind of balance that out. However, because we're running a very high float count deck, we often have extra float in the late game, so that 1 cost isn't really an issue. These cards were quite good, just helping reduce the total damage that we take over a long game. And yeah, one of the cool things about the format just being able to run more niche regalia like these cards. Then we ran Lantern as our other defensive regalia. We figured that if any one deck was going to get Lantern, we want it to be the water deck so they could take advantage of Fracturize, just to have that very potent combo against any of the fire decks. It's also very good against the Wind Crux deck because you're able to Fracturize your Lantern so they can't Zephyr it, and now their Crux sites are all permanently disabled, so they can't rip your influence a ton or buy back their ghosts, which we also found to be very important when testing that matchup. Yeah, just great all around, and very happy that we ran that. Archon Broadsword, this is our main win con in the deck. I mean, we're winning through making a board of drones and attacking for lethal. Broadsword just helps us really accelerate that game plan. Normally speaking for about 10 damage, but it is very easy to ramp it up to almost like 16, 17 damage. I think we hit at one point even. Just having a huge board of tokens, especially if you're getting like Resolute Standed or Vanished, then it just helps you kind of push through that, which is quite important. And then we have Sentinel Fabricator is our last material deck card. This is basically a second copy of Obelisk of Fabrication. Just getting an extra way to make drones is quite good, and just kind of lets us build that board presence late game and really just completely take control of the game. Moving on to the material deck. So obviously, as the domains are, or the obelisks are the heart and soul of the deck, the reason why it works, we wanted to run main deck domains to help reduce their costs. So we ran a total of 5, 4 altar and 1 palatial concourse. Altar is neutral, so it was just very important for that aspect. Concourse is not neutral. There are no other neutral domains in the game, or Eternal Kingdom in a way, but Kingdom's upkeep cost end up not working too well with this style of deck. But Concourse, it does give continual value by just glimpsing one every single turn. So playing it early isn't the worst, even though you're going down in influence. And reducing these costs late game means that it sort of increases your influence. In a sense, it increases what you have to work with when you're taking these effects into mind. We didn't want to run Trading Post because while you can pay for its effect early, late game you're using extra resources for the obelisks and your fabricators, so you don't actually have them available in order to kind of pay for wasted costs. So we wanted to run a card instead that would just get value throughout that extremely grind game. Then we ran for Academy Guide. As I mentioned, we wanted to just abuse this card and Spectrometer to get easy level ups. This card was excellent. It always went neutral. It often went +1, and a couple times would go +2. Very powerful card, though it shouldn't deserve the current price that it is right now, whatever obscene it is at the time of watching. This card, in my opinion, should be like $20, maybe $25, just because it's an SR, and it is pretty good, but it's not that good, if you know what I mean. Anyways, then we are running 2 Tide Diviner. This is also just to help reduce our level up costs by getting +1s with floating memory. We're on 19 float, which means that assuming you draw an even ratio of float to non-float in the deck, the odds that this hits float on level 2, so you're seeing 3 cards, is going to be 25% for no float, 50% for 1 float, 25% for 2 float. So on average, every 4 games you play it, you'll hit no float once, just a neutral line, 2 float once, or 1 float twice, sorry. So it's 2 games you'll have +1, and then 1 game you'll hit 2 float, which is a +2, which is just very powerful, and kind of lets you hit those kind of like, all right, I'm level 3, and I still have 8 influence, which is pretty good, in my opinion. And then we're running 4 Frostborn Paladin. Like I said, we're on a very high float package, so this is just very easy to always be a 3-cost 3/4 with Intercept, which is excellent. We heard Ace Protector is a good card. This is an even better version of it. The Intercept is very important in the late game because you can just help protect this card so it never dies with Obelisk Protection and cards like Storm of Thorns and Diffusive Block. And then it just is a permanent interceptor. You can never be hit by big attacks like a Rending Flames or Heavy Swing or Diana Gunshots, and that just kind of helps you really, really stabilize when you're at like 25 damage taken. You'll have 5 life left. But you just have a beefy interceptor on board and protection for it, and you are not going anywhere. Now for our defensive lineup, we have 3 Take Points, 4 Diffusive Block, and 4 Storm of Thorns. We didn't quite have room for the 4th Take Point. We were running it initially and be at 20 float. We ended up trimming it just to bump a different card up. We found that this one was, while it's the strongest on the first couple turns of Protecting Academy Guide, it falls off hardest throughout the game. This card's only really good like turns 1 or 2, and it has some very niche applications late, versus Diffusive Block and Storm of Thorns, which are always good the entire game. Just be able to protect your life total is extremely important. As I said, you hit those points where it's like turn 5, turn 6, you're taking 25 damage, and you're just kind of holding on for dear life for the next 5 turns because you're not normally killing till like turn 10 or so. Just having the extra damage reduction from these to stack with our Obelisk is crucial. But they also help you protect Academy Guide early and kind of getting those early value plays from it. And they go neutral, which is very good. Then to run out our float package, we were on 4 Fracturize because it is amazing. Just being able to remove any important regalia or using it on your own lantern to permanently shut off fire cards and crux cards, while also getting +1 is quite good. And then we are on 4 Chilling Touch. This is just a very good tempo play, and if you time it right, you can really disrupt your opponent. And especially if you have multiples, just stripping them down so you can play 1 less card in their turn or can't level up that turn can really just give you that extra little edge that you need to kind of stabilize in the game. It's also just a 1-cost float, which makes it much easier to activate Paladin. Especially on those like early turns. Like going second, you have 8 cards in hand. You can Chilling Touch, Paladin, Paladin attack, kill an ally, and still have 3 cards in hand to play like a Frostbind, Song of Frost, Diffusive, Storm of Thorns, anything like that, which is excellent. Then running out our water interaction, we have 4 Frostbind, because this card is amazing. Just the best counterspell that we have in the game that is easily available. Super flexible, super powerful, and yeah. Then we have 3 Song of Frost. This card we thought about not running as many of, like maybe running a 2 of. But the reason we stuck to 3 is because while the things you want to hit with it, like Cleaves, Rending Flames, other big attacks, Diana Gunshots, we didn't expect to really run into too many of them in the 3v3 format. Our thought process was that when you do run into those decks, you really want to see Song of Frost, and at 2 copies, you never reliably see it. So if we're going to run it, we kind of have to run 3, and we figured we kind of had to run it since we don't get a sideboard in the format. It ended up being quite good. Glad that we ran it at this. But when it's good, it's great. When it's not good, it's just dead, which is unfortunate. But overall, still good card. Then for our removal package, we're on 4 Tidal Sweep. This card is also kind of clunky. Notably, it's class bonus Warrior, not class bonus Guardian. So it's just 6 cost, 1 power Cleave. However, it still is good because of the level 2 Tony effect, getting +3 power on enter. So you level to him, then you Cleave for 4, just completely wipe the board, really helps you stabilize. Late game on Tony level 3, you can use it in conjunction with an Aura Steel Greatsword to still have that 4 power Cleave, which is just quite valuable and really just lets you clean up the board, clean up any stealth units like your like fairies or shimmer cloaks, and early against ally decks just kind of helps you stabilize, and it can be a big blowout just because people aren't expecting or playing around this card. Then we have 3 Hypothermia. This is just the best removal that water has. Single spot removal. Gets around any kind of damage reduction stuff like evasive maneuvers or diffusive block. Storm of Thorns, Deflecting Edge, Karazi Trapper, anything like that. It just, nope, kills the card anyways. And yeah, quite powerful. And similarly powerful is Frostbinder Apostle. Same effect, it's just locked to level 2+, and so we had to run a split in case we need to remove like an early Gildas or Arthur. But late game, this is much better. Do the intercept. Kind of the same reason as Frostborn Paladin with the obelisks and the defensive regalia or defensive spells on this card can just make it so you can never be touched, which is quite important in certain matchups. Apostle was excellent the entire weekend. Very happy that we ran that card. Same with Hypothermia. They ran 3 Revitalizing Cleanse. If you haven't noticed, we are running a lot of water cards. I believe the deck is 50 water cards, more or less. Maybe it's like 47. So this card is always healing for like 3 to 4, sometimes even 5. Going neutral. It's just a very good early play. It's clunky late, especially with your obelisks, but you don't really need to resolve it late. It's here to be like a turn 1, turn 2 play to help remove some of that early damage you've taken. Keep you out of being bursted, and just cycling to kind of dig a little bit deeper for any cards you might need to see for that matchup. Then we ran 3 Resolute Stands, just a better defensive line late game where you just need to say, I will not take damage right now. Lined up perfectly with our Luxum deck because that was on 4 Vanish and 1 Resolute. We took their 3 Resolutes here. Peace Reunion is clunky in both decks, and so this was just kind of all the fogs that we really could run. This card was great. People know it's Resolute Stands, yeah. And then the last 2 cards you run are actually Neos cards. Is 3 Summon Sentinels. Poro's version of the deck was always running Amorphous Strikes and Heavy Swings, but we found those cards to be too clunky versus ally decks. You never really have time to play them. It's hard to play a Heavy Swing. You want to be holding up interaction. So then you kind of have to rely on milling it. And he is running Vaporjet Shield Bearer. That was just another card that we couldn't really find the room for or justify in some matchups. Though it is quite cool. Not being able to mill a Heavy Swing to enable the Amorphous Strike then makes Amorphous pretty clunky late game. And we figured that instead of just trying to get quick like cheeky kills early, we'd rather just play cards that let us take control of the board, not die, and we'll just chip out the opponent over time. Which is what Sentinels really facilitates. It lets you get some burst with your Archon Broadsword. It represents 6 extra damage in that way. But it also just helps you clear board for very little cost. You know, a 2 cost, 1 cost, or even a 0 cost, make 2 drones with buff counters. Coming in swinging is quite powerful. So this card was excellent all weekend. It's good into every single deck versus other Neos cards are only good into certain decks. So that is the end of the deck profile. I hope that you all found it interesting. I am very excited to kind of mess around with this deck in a true constructed format, not just the 3-3 format. Kind of see what the deck can do with a, without those deck building restrictions, and then with a full sideboard as well, especially with MRC where we're getting that 15 card sideboard. Sounds awesome. That kind of format really helps control decks the most in my opinion, and because you can just really tailor your interaction for what deck you're playing against, which is essential for playing a control deck. If you're interested in playing very, very grindy, very challenging, kind of like interactive, nuanced decks, I recommend giving something like this deck a shot. Maybe not this exact list because it was tailored for 3-3, but hope that this is a good starting point for everyone for trying just a kind of new style of Grand Archive deck. Once again, thank you to Poro for kind of creating the template of this deck. Our list is quite similar to his. It's probably about, I think, 80% off the top of my head similar. But like I said, kind of there are some pretty key differences. Anyways, hope everyone has a great time. Have a great rest of your days and enjoy playing Grand Archive.